now.
All right. Welcome, everyone. We're so glad to have you here with us today. We have so been looking forward to this event. And feel free, please, to leave comments. Tell us where you're from. If you're from like the Southeast, I'd love to know if it's snowing there. Got some fun pictures this morning from my relatives in North Carolina, and it looks just beautiful. So please tell us where you're from. I'm here with my friends, Liz Tolsma and Sarah Sundin. And then we also have a surprise guest who you're going to already see, but she's going to share a little bit with us in a bit. And we're super excited to have her all the way from France. So welcome, everybody. And yeah, I think, Liz, we've got tons of fun giveaways today. Liz is going to explain just a few logistics to get us rolling here.
Sure. So the commenting on StreamYard, I believe that there are some instructions up at the top of this live feed here that give you instructions on how to comment. So it's pretty much regular commenting. Follow what StreamYard asks you to do. It's not mandatory, but if you do that, then we're able to see your name. And when we answer your questions and things like that, then we can talk to you by name. Otherwise, we can't see your names. Otherwise, that's basically it. We're just here. We're going to chat with you, and we're going to ask some questions along the way. Each of us will have some questions. There'll be some fun giveaways kind of sprinkled throughout this time. And to help the person who is moderating this and who's going to help us draw winners and things like that, when you are answering one of the questions to win a prize, if you could please just start your answer saying Melanie's answer or Sarah's answer or Liz's answer. That way, that will help the moderator so much in figuring out which question that you're answering and which prize you're going for, because otherwise she's just going to get totally confused, and that will be a huge help. And we'll remind you when we ask the questions to please preface it that way. But otherwise, I think that's all the instructions. This is pretty simple and straightforward, and we just want you to sit back, relax, enjoy. We're super excited about this. My mom texted me this morning. She says, I know it's your big thing today. So she knows how excited I've been and how much I've been looking forward to this. So I hope that you all enjoy it. And yeah, if you have any questions about anything along the way, then just ask in the comment section there, and the moderator or one of us will jump in and try to answer your question. I think that's it.
I love that, Liz, that your mom was asking. I've been so excited about this all week too. So
she's heard me talk about nothing else.
Mom, if you're here. So we already have some wonderful comments. Welcome, Perry Ann and Morgan and Shannon. Yes, from North Carolina. Sarah, Mary. Yeah, thank you all. Jackie, Jennifer, and Cindy. Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're here.
Is there any snow in North Georgia, Cindy? My daughter lives there, and I spoke to her yesterday and forgot to ask if they were supposed to get snow. So let me know if my daughter's getting any snow.
And then I think Sarah's going to tell us a little bit about her wonderful book. Sarah, I just finished reading your book, and it was amazing, of course. I absolutely loved it. So I'm excited to hear what you have to share about it.
Thank you. So my name is Sarah Sundin, and my novel is Until Leaves Fall in Paris. And I just got my copy about 2 days ago. I can't believe Melanie's already finished it. I just got Melanie's book, and I'm like salivating over it, and I want to read it so badly. And the fun thing is, when we decided to do this giveaway, we realized all three of us had novels set in World War II in France. And ironically, we all have American heroines, right?
Yes.
That was kind of fun. So we each chose it. But the thing is, the story of France in World War II is so big that we each have such incredibly different stories. And we even focus on different areas of France. Mine is in Paris, and Liz's is in Normandy, and Melanie's is set in the south of France. So, and those couldn't be more different stories. So anyway, Until Leaves Fall in Paris takes place in Paris, obviously.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of in the title. Yeah.
Give away.
Yeah. And as the Nazis invade France in 1940, American ballerina Lucy Gerard buys her favorite English language bookstore to allow the Jewish owners to escape. Lucy struggles to run the bookstore due to oppressive German laws and harsh conditions, but she finds a way to aid the resistance by passing secret messages between the pages of her book. So this story was inspired by a why question. I think most books are to a certain extent. And I had read that American citizens remained in Paris after the Nazis came. And the first question I had was why? Why on earth? Because America, between the fall of France in June 1940 to Pearl Harbor, December 1941, almost a year and a half, America was neutral. American citizens were free to leave, unlike the French and so many other people who were trapped. Americans could go, but thousands remained. Now, they started leaving during that time period, but even in December 1941, there were about 2,000 Americans in Paris. And that fascinated me. Why on earth would they stay? And of course, the answers were as varied as the people themselves. Some stayed for artistic or professional reasons. Some stayed because they were married to French people, so they had familial reasons. Others stayed just because France was their home. They had spent very little time in the States, and they just couldn't imagine leaving. So my story in particular was inspired by the real life story of Sylvia Beach. She was a single American woman who owned the famous English language bookstore called Shakespeare and Company. And she remained in Paris. And she was a middle-aged American single woman, and she stayed. And I wanted to know why. And first of all, it showed a lot of spunk and courage. And that's, of course, what we want in a heroine, some spunk and courage. So I kind of borrowed certain elements of her story and came up with Lucy Gerard, who runs her own English language bookstore. And that's where my story idea came from. But there was so much I learned that fascinated me. This book particularly was wonderful, Americans in Paris by Charles Glass. Really interesting book, and talking about the variety of reactions that Americans had who stayed. Those who were violently opposed to the Nazis and participated in the resistance, and those who sold to the Germans and openly collaborated with them, and a whole bunch of people in the middle. But really some fascinating stories in this book, which helped me craft my novel. And one of the things that really fascinated me was that the American community in Paris, they called it the American colony at the time, and it had dated back to Benjamin Franklin. As you know, Americans have had this long love affair with all things French.
Yes.
And this long history of alliance between the two countries dating back to our Revolutionary War. And so in Paris, there was, at the time of World War II, an American church, an American cathedral, the American library, the American hospital, the American Chamber of Commerce. I mean, there were all these institutions which mirrored institutions in the United States serving the American colony in Paris. And so I was able to incorporate certain of these in my story. If you ever have a chance to read Alex Kershaw's Avenue of Spies, it talks about the American hospital and their contribution to the resistance. Really phenomenal and heartbreaking story of what the stories that these people did. So I was able to bring the American hospital into the novel too. And anyway, some great stories that came out of it. And I really liked a little bit of a different spin. And I was able to explore this interesting community, but still in the setting of Nazi occupation. Now, my question to you, to win a copy of Until Leaves Fall in Paris, my question to you, and remember to start your answer with Sarah's question or Sarah's answer, but make sure you have Sarah in there, first word, so that our lovely virtual assistant can find your answers and so you can be entered in the giveaway. My question to you is, first, if you have been to Paris, what was the one thing that you loved most? If you have not been to Paris, what is the one thing you would most like to see or do? And I'll give you my answer. My first time we were in Paris, it was December of 2002. cold, so cold. And so here's our winter in France thing. And I was bundled up. I bought a scarf in one of these lovely stalls in Paris, and also bundled up in my scarf. And we were there with two friends, and we stood in the median in the middle of the Champs-Élysées. And the trees were lit up as far as you could see down this broad avenue, and the buildings were lit up, and then the Eiffel Tower glittering as it does at night. And it was just the most, we stood there for like half an hour, just like giggling in delight like children. It was about one of the most magical things I've seen, and it was just beautiful. So that is my answer to my own question. And make sure you put your answer in the comment box so you can be entered for a chance to win this book.
Oh, Sarah, I can just like see it. I'm there with you. It sounds so magical.
So beautiful.
I love it.
So now back to Liz.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll give some time for the answers to come in before we pick a winner for When Leaves Fall in Paris. And, but so we'll keep moving on. And I guess that means that it's my turn to tell a little bit about my book, which is, I said it close to me. I'm looking far away. A Picture of Hope. Mine came out in October, so mine's been out a little while. So maybe some of you have had a chance to read A Picture of Hope. And to those of you who did, thank you so much. It's part of Barbour Publishing's series, Heroines of World War II. There will be a total of 12 books in all, one releasing every other month. Mine was the second one to release, and I think the fourth one is about to release. I believe in February it comes out. And I had been wanting to, if you know me at all, I have stories that in the European theater and one in the Pacific theater, but they were all, I guess you would call them international heroines. So they were, whatever country they were in, that's what they were. And I had wanted to do an American heroine. I sort of wanted to be like Sarah Sundin, who had these American heroines who were nurses, that was your one series and things like that. And so I thought, okay, well, she's done nurses and things like that. So what am I going to do? And so I picked journalists. So I had this whole proposal. It never got sold anywhere. And Barbour came out and said, well, we want to do this series. We'd like you to be part of it. What do you have for us? And I thought, I can pull this one out. I know just what I'm going to write. And so you never know what's on your computer that's going to come in handy someday. And so that is where the Picture of Hope sort of came from, where the idea sort of came from. And in the story, Nellie Wilkerson, the heroine, is a photojournalist, an American photojournalist. And she has been spending the war in England, taking pictures of mothers standing in milk lines, and she is frankly grown bored. She's an adventuresome woman, and she's bored. And when D-Day comes, the American military has told women reporters that they are not allowed to go to France. In fact, that is based in truth. They and a bunch of American journalists got together and wrote to the American military and said, this isn't fair. These men get to go, but why do we have to stay behind? We want to be allowed to go. So they weren't allowed to go in until several days after D-Day. They finally got permission to go in, and they were kept away from where the main action was happening in general. But there was one journalist, and oh my goodness, it's Saturday. My mind just turned off. Don't you hate Martha Gellhorn? Okay, came to me. I don't have, my research book is sitting over there. Martha Gellhorn, she was actually the estranged wife of Ernest Hemingway, and she wanted to best her husband, who was embedded with the troops going over to Normandy. And she said, well, he's not going to have all the fun. And she kind of snuck on a hospital ship and went over to Normandy. And she got off there, got the scoop on her husband, and was one of the first to report on what was happening during D-Day. Now, she went back to England, but I had my heroine staying in France. Yes, I actually had in one of the reviews of my book on Amazon, they said, oh, I love this book, except for that part where she got on the hospital ship and went over to France. That was just too far out. That was too unbelievable. I can't believe she'd make up something like that. And I'm like, that's one of the most true parts of the whole story. But she stays in France, ends up behind enemy lines, and runs across a French maquisard. And I'm sure Louisa can sort of correct my French pronunciation. It's been a long time since high school French. And a French resistance fighter, and they're trying to get her back to the Americans. And along the way, they come across this terrible tragedy, which is also based in fact, unfortunately. And the sole survivor of this tragedy is a little girl with Down syndrome. And the Nazis wanted to rid the world of everyone who was not perfect in their eyes. It wasn't just Jews, it was also gypsies and those with any type of physical or intellectual disability. And of course, Down syndrome, that stands out a lot and would be very recognizable. And so her life was really in danger. And Nellie and Jean-Paul combined forces, and this is also based in fact, where they race across France to the town of Annemasse, which is today a suburb of Geneva, Switzerland, and try to sneak these children across. And the famous mime Marcel Marceau was involved in this, along with many others. And they did just this. They took Jewish children by train to Annemasse and various points along the Swiss border and snuck them illegally across the border to Switzerland. And so that's sort of my story. They're being pursued by the Nazis as they race across France to try to save Claire. And so my question then to win a copy of A Picture of Hope is kind of like Sarah's, I guess, but mine takes part in a large part of France. And my question is, if you could visit France, what part of France would you like to visit? Because we have Paris, we have the Pyrenees, and mine stretches from Normandy all the way to Geneva, Switzerland. So it covers a wide swath of France. What part of France would you like to visit? And my answer, oh my goodness, that's really, really hard to answer because there's so much that's beautiful and wonderful about it that I would like to visit. I'd love to see Normandy. I'd love to see the French Alps. I'd love to lay on a beach in the French Riviera. Basically anything, I suppose. I would be open for any adventure in France. So that's my question. So I will, and remember when you answer my question to put in front of there Liz's answer, or Liz's question or something, my name there, so that our lovely VA can pick out the answer to your question.
Yay. Thank you, Liz. And I have a copy of your book too. I had the privilege of endorsing this story. And it is just, this is one of those books that just like grabs your heartstrings and just keeps it engaged the whole entire story. So well done with this book. Highly recommend both Sarah and Liz's book. It's just such an honor to be able to partner with you both today and talk about our stories. Welcome, Mary Ann. I see Teresa, Emily, Ginger. Oh my goodness, so many people have joined us. What a blessing this is. Jackie, Mary, James, Nancy. I'm so glad you're all able to be here. Before we move on to my story, Liz, do we have a winner yet for Sarah's 2 books?
I I haven't seen it come through yet, but
Okay.
let me text Arlene. Oh, yes, she did. See, my phone, I'm so good. I put it on do not disturb, so I didn't hear it come through. It came through.
Wonderful. She's on top
Okay,
of
we
it.
do have winners for Sarah's book. Would we want to do one now and one later? Or
Sure. Yeah, that sounds great.
okay. All right. So the first winner of When Leaves Fall in Paris is Perry Ann Askew. So
Yay.
congratulations, Perry Ann.
Congratulations, Perry Ann. That's fantastic. And why don't you email your address, and you can just send it to my email, melanie@melaniedobson.com, and all the winners can do that. Just email me your address and I'll make sure and organize getting the books to everybody. So thank you so much. We'll have another giveaway soon of Sarah's book and then 2 of Liz's. Thank you for all your comments. All right. And I believe it's my turn.
Yes.
All right. So here is my new book. It came out last week. This is The Winter Rose. And I'm so excited to be able to finally share this. You know how it is. You write the book and then you get it in and then it's a whole year later, sometimes before it actually comes out. And so I'm just thrilled to be able to have this one finally come out. This one was inspired actually when I was researching one of my other books, The Curator's Daughter, a couple of years ago. And I ran across, just like Sarah and Liz, ran across a story that I hadn't heard before. And this one was about the American Quakers, who were actually similar to what the other ladies had explained, but they were in France. They actually came to France right before World War II, during the Spanish Civil War, because a number of kids from Spain actually came across the Pyrenees Mountains into France, and they were being cared for there. And then when the Nazis began to occupy France, of course, things began to shift and change. And so instead of a lot of these ladies going back to America or to England or different parts of the world, they stayed there and began to care for the kids who were in the different camps in France. And so that why question that I believe Sarah brought up earlier of why did they do this? I was just so intrigued by their story and stories, and wanted to learn more about these young women and kind of why they did what they did. So began to research and kind of just dug into their stories and discovered that some of them, they care for these kids, and then some of them began to help them escape from these camps, find homes. And there's estimates of like 800 kids that actually escaped over the Pyrenees back into Spain, in part by the work of the Quakers there in France. So really, really an incredible story. So this story was based on that. And then I also, as I researched and wrote this story, I also wanted to know, just kind of take a really authentic look at some of these children. And, that's not the end of their story. They get over the Pyrenees Mountains. Maybe they get to America or England or wherever they were going. But what happened to them and their emotion? I mean, the trauma, I just can't imagine what they faced as a result of losing their parents and of a whole new world and a whole new land and new customs and new language and all of this. And sort of the journey that they faced. So I've taken this story and I've looked at through the eyes of one young man, and what was his story, what happened to him. And it was a hard journey for him, but the redemption that he was able to get through the process was just really inspiring to me personally. I loved writing. It was a hard story to write, but it was one that I really, really enjoyed writing because I love to write about redemption. I love to write about the hope in the midst of some really, really tough situations. And so that was my desire and my goal through this story. I was able to go to France about 8 years ago with a dear friend who has family there when I was writing Chateau Secrets back in 2013. And we went to Normandy and Paris and loved all of it. And then I was planning to go back again in 2020 to research this story. And it was 2020. So I was so disappointed. It's really hard for me to to write a novel without actually visiting my setting. That's really important for me to go. And I wasn't able to do it this time. And so I had to get really creative in my research. Books are great. I love that. But there's just something about being in a setting. I know you ladies know this. Smells, tasting the wonderful French food, drinking that cappuccino, just experiencing the people and the place. And I just wasn't able to do that. And so really prayed about it because I really wanted this story to be told as authentically as possible. And the doors that started opening, I mean, it was just amazing. I live in Oregon, and so we have a huge Quaker community about 15 minutes away. Sarah, you've been there before. So, just this wonderful Quaker community. So I was able to dive into their resources. The archivist in Philadelphia, where all of the resources are kept for the French committee that they had, he gave me a ton of resources. My friend Morgan, who's actually Morgan Tarpley Smith, who is on the chat, I saw a comment or two from her. She told me about virtual tours. Have you ladies ever taken a virtual tour before? This is kind of a 2020 thing. It was the coolest thing. You can go online and you can take a tour all over the world. But I was able to go to this Spanish village right in the Pyrenees and was able to take this virtual tour where I have this virtual tour guide. It's live. It's all done live. You can ask questions, you dialogue. He took us around, showed us all sorts of things with his camera, and then just answered a bunch of my questions. And so that was really, really helpful. And then I was reading this book, and I don't have a copy of it like you ladies did of your research, but it was a book written about some of these Quaker ladies in the Quaker committee there. And one of the ladies was named Mary Elms. She's actually Irish. And she helped rescue this young man named Ronald. He was about 4 or so at the time from one of the camps, Gears. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that terribly, but one of the camps there in France, and helped him get away and hide. And he hid for the whole war. He actually stayed in France and then left later to go to Britain and then actually to Portland, Oregon, which is where I'm from. He actually ended up here. And so I started researching his story and was able to contact him by Facebook, which was so cool. And it was 2020. And so I couldn't actually meet him in person, but he agreed to do the Zoom call with me. And we were on Zoom. It was over an hour. And he just poured out his story. And it was amazing. He just found out 10 years ago who actually rescued him. He didn't realize the Quaker involvement and how he actually got out of the camp to this safe place. Found out who rescued him. He shared his story, how he was hid, how just kind of all the, how obviously lost some family members, super, super tragic and sad in that. But then the redemption of his story, how he was able to get out and sort of his journey. And I think you all would agree with me, but just that, oh my goodness, those stories, when you talk to someone like that who's willing to gift you, it's a gift when people share their story, right, with you. And he just gifted me with his story, and it just helped mold and shape the story of this young man that I had leaving France and coming to the United States. So anyway, that's sort of my journey through the writing of this book. It was absolutely an honor to be able to write. I mean, we all write about, the American bookstore owner and the American reporter, and then the American Quaker ladies, all these real people who just did extraordinary things, and to be able to celebrate their lives, I think, and their stories is just such an honor for us to be able to do that with fiction, honor for us to write, research, and then, share it with all of you. So thank you for joining us on this journey. My question, we should have consulted about questions because I'm going to ask, where would you like to go in France? So that I will ask a different question. I will broaden it. If you could go anywhere in Europe, how's that? Where would you like to go? Let's all dream a little bit here. One of my favorite places in Europe, excuse me, is Austria, Hallstatt, Austria. I would love to go back there someday. Beautiful old medieval town in the Austrian Alps the lakes and everything, just gorgeous. Tons of World War II history there. And so if you would like, just I would love to know where you would be interested in going, and perhaps, just for our sake as novelists, where maybe you would like to go in story form and experience that. So just put my name and put the answer, and we'll do some more giveaways here of the books. Liz, do you have some more books to give away?
I do. So the first winner of A Picture of Hope, which is my book, is Meredith Parvin. So congratulations, Meredith. You'll be getting a copy of A Picture of Hope. And remember, just email Melanie, melanie@melaniedobson.com, correct?
Yes, please. Send me your address.
And then we can get those books off to you as soon as we possibly can. It's been fun. I've been sitting here just sort of looking at all of the comments and everything coming through, and we'll have time where we're trying to answer some of your questions and things like that. But just even seeing what you were answering to my question and now what you're answering Melanie's question, it's so much fun to see that coming through. So we love having you do all of that.
Yeah, thank you. I see Charlotte. Thank you so much for joining us here. And thank you. Like Liz said, I just love all these things. Yes, Nancy, Mont Saint Michel. Oh my goodness, I was able to go there when I was in Normandy. That is an incredible place. And I'm sure, Louisa, you've been there. But oh my goodness, I love everything about France. And speaking of France, Sarah is getting ready to introduce our guest, and I'm just so excited to have you join us. And excited to hear your stories.
What was fun is when we were first brainstorming this, and Melanie and Liz were like, "Oh, wouldn't it be fun to have somebody, a guest from France?" And I said, "Well, I happen to know somebody," and I met. Her real name is Louisa Treberac, and once again, please correct my pronunciation. She is a writer herself. She writes under Isabel Bartolo. And I met her through the West Coast Christian Writer. Oh, other way around. I'm sorry. Her real name is Isabel. She writes as Louisa Treberac. I met her as Louisa through the West Coast Christian Writers Conference, where I'm the co-director. And she was very involved. And we were just so delighted to have her because we had to meet online last year and this year too. Usually we have guests at conferees from the West Coast. And this time we had guests from France, and we had some fun. And we just thought it was so delightful. And we just found Louisa so delightful. And her English is impeccable. So I sent her a message and say, "Would you be willing to be our guest?" And she said yes. And we're so thankful. And by the way, she and I did not color court. We did not both decide to.
I like that.
It's just a thing. So anyway, welcome, Louisa. She is going to share some stories from her personal family about World War II in France. And Louisa lives in Toulouse, which is in southern France. So take it away, Louisa.
Thank you very much. I really am grateful to be here on this platform with you. It's really an honor for me. I should say that it's not by chance, because like 2 years ago, I read one of Sarah's books.
Love it.
Following her news, then I jumped in the West Coast and also the SCFW Virginia, where we were also together. So it's funny that how you go one way and it comes back to you like a boomerang. So the first thing I would say is, I'm born in Paris. I'm a real one from Paris, even though now I'm in the south of France. And when I grew up, I was really dark-haired, and my brother was fair hair and green eyes. And my mom always told us, if the Nazis would still be there in the 60s, end of the 60s, they would have taken your brother, because with the blonde fair hair and green eyes, he would be of interest for them. You, the brown one, dark eyes, would have no interest for them. And it's thanks to the Americans that came to Normandy that your brother is safe. And so I've really grown with that gratefulness from Americans coming across the ocean to just save us as a country, as a nation. And I really felt, like I owe something to them, or my country owes something to them. So I'm quite sort of a bit not shy, but quite humble to express now today in front of so many witnesses. Well, thank you on behalf of my nation. Many people have said it before, but I can say it again. And I would say in my family, in my father's family, you have the extraordinary, which is a young lady who was trained with the WAF and who was parachuted in France. And you have plenty of internet details about what happened to her and how her and the other ladies who were supposed to spy the Germans, then somebody spoke about them, so they went to Ravensbrück camp, and they were shot in the Ravensbrück forest in January or February 45. And then you have the normal, average people, and most of the people in France, they came out from the traumatized of World War One, and you cannot understand the feeling of the French for World War II if you do not go back and look at what happened in World War One. And in all my family lines, whether on my dad's side or my mom's side, we have dead people during that World War One. And for those that came back, so many were crippled. So many had, these metallic jaws because they had lost part of their faces. So that when you would grow as a child, you would be always reminded that the Germans were the enemies because they sort of disabled and destroyed the lives of so many people, and every family was always grieving. So in that, in my mother's bloodline, there was one single lady, so that's the one, and that's lady, her name was Marcel. That was the name of her uncle who had been killed in World War One, because she was the lonely child in a family owning a bookshop in a small town in Burgundy. She soon had, the ability to drive a car. And so one of the stories that impacted her was the poverty that was during the years prior to the World War, because there was that depression. We had the Depression 29 in the United States. We had it in Europe. And as a teenager, she saw a family with one egg and so many children and just a few sticks of bread. And the child were allowed to dip only once in the egg. And so that was things she would tell me. And then he ended up being engaged in 38. So as a special treat, I want to show you her dress, the dress she had when she was engaged, which is a crepe fabric with the silk. I don't know if you see a silk satin, and then the bottom the way it is.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very nice one. And it's small to show it, but I thought happy. I really keep it as a treasure. And then they got married in February 39, and my mom was born in December 39. And my granddad was taken in the military because he was working with a transmission. So he was boarded on a train that was supposed to, protect the German border. So he's my grandfather, by the way. I don't know how I should put that.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
He had Belgian blood, so he had the most beautiful blue eyes. And the train, when the Nazi invaded France, so it's May, June 40, with his crew and all the military there, they decided no way we hand our train over to the Nazis. We're gonna flee, and they were under death sentence for that. So they fled to the French Riviera in Nice, to the further parts down south, to save the train. And when they came there, they were told, we've lost and we have to hand out everything. So you just go back home. And then he couldn't find my grandmother anymore because he hadn't a clue about what happened to my grandmother. So my grandmother had that bookshop. And bookshops at that time, they would sell paper, they would sell pencils, and not only books, they would sell maps. And there was that guy one day who came and said, I want all the maps. You had the maps of the forest, the maps of the past, everything. And she understood he was in the resistance and he was needing all the maps to organize how they would have their special clothes. And then the guy said, they're coming and we're going to lose. And you'd better prepare, pack, and go away. And so with the baby and her parents, they already had prepared so that they would go to another part of France where they had family. But then when it was over, everybody went back home. So they had just their bookshop. And they were not like doing anything, specific. Most of the people, they were like very quiet. You had those that were working with the Nazis because they wanted to have food, they wanted to have privileges. But most people, they were just like very quiet, not blessing them, but not doing anything harmful. But one thing my grandmother told me once, so just through my grandparents, that's after the war. Both of them, they're about 45 at that time. The one thing she told me was one day the Nazi came and they went through the whole bookshop. They were looking for a typewriter, helping to make reports, papers, documents, identity cards, and so on. And they looked everywhere and they never found it. And she wouldn't say anything more. I just could understand she had one. And then she said when the war was over, there's those many people whom we knew had done nothing. And they kept saying, we were happy with this, we were happy with that. We want a medal, we want fame, we want to be recognized. And she said, but with your granddad, we never spoke, we never said what we'd done. We knew we'd done it. It was enough. It was enough. It was the right thing to do. We knew we had one typewriter we couldn't take for them, and they wanted it safe with us because it could be taken from them. So they knew they could have it whenever, and it was well hidden, and they never found it. So that was, and I hope that's blessing you. And then I don't know if I have time or if I'm already over the 10 minutes. Otherwise, I have a tiny other story.
Tell us your other tiny story, please.
So when my mother was born, my grandmother thought she'd be better in the countryside. So they were taking this small house, where they lived, and so that my grandmother would care for my mother and her sister born in 43. And they were so starving because it was rural. So everybody, were farmers and were having food from their farms, and they struggling, but still having things growing and having animals. And so my grandmother would go to the houses and say, can you give me, when you peel your vegetables, just the skin of the vegetables so that I can cook a soup for these two babies. And the people would say, we've got rabbits. So prior for the rabbits, manage the way you want, but we're not going to give you anything to do. And then in the tiny house I showed you, there was a shed at the back of the garden. And then some Nazi soldiers said, we need a house, a place to sleep. And we take that shed and we're going to sleep there. My great-grandmother had a dog, a tiny female dog called Tanit. And she hated the soldiers. And she kept, growling and the soldiers were saying, we're going to kill that dog. And my great-grandmother She had blue eyes, and she was very fair and about 50 years old woman. And she was yelling at the Nazis. Everybody was thinking she's completely out of her mind. They're going to kill her. And she was saying, if you touch my tongue, I'm going to hit you. And they never dared to do anything to her. It was incredible. But there were times they would look through the things or search the house for weapons. And those Nazis would put their gun on my mom's head.
Oh.
And she was terrified. So she said, I remember the German with the gun on my head when I was 5 years old. And then she says, but I also remember when France was liberated, the town was called Auxerre, Auxerre. And the Americans flooded the town and they were giving chewing gum to all the kids. And they were so nice. So thank you for having me. And thank you again for all our shared history and the bonds that we have as nations.
Oh, thank you for honoring us. Those are just amazing stories. Just to be able to hear those stories firsthand, it just gives me goosebumps. Thank you so much. Liz, I think, do you want to have some more giveaways and then maybe explain what's next with our Winter in France promotion?
Sure, we can do that. So shall we go back and give away another copy of Sarah's book?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so the winner of Sarah's book is Sherelle Huff O'Neill.
You're welcome.
So please email Melanie at melaniedobson.com, and
please.
Then Sarah can get the book out to you. So send your information over to Melanie, and we will have that. Should we just announce all the rest of the book winners?
Yeah, if you've got them, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, I do. Then the other winner of A Picture of Hope, my book, is Jan Barton. So Jan, if you could please email Melanie, and I will get a picture of hope out to you. I'm trying to look at the comments, and I shouldn't be doing that while I'm doing that.
Wonderful comments, aren't they?
And did we announce any of Melanie's winners? I don't think we announced any of Melanie's winners. Okay, so Melanie's winners are Cindy Kevorkian Stewart and Angie Poole. So congratulations.
Congratulations, everybody. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And then we've got so many giveaways coming up. And I think, Liz, if you could tell us just a little bit about how we're going to do that over the next week.
That's right. The fun doesn't end when we sign off here. It's going to continue for a whole nother week. And so we have blog posts. I did not check mine this morning, so fingers crossed that it posted. I will check when we're done here. But and Sarah, I think I'm just going to mute you a second. I think I'm hearing a little echo, and some people have been. Yeah, that seemed to take care of the echo. So if you want to say something, just wave wildly and I'll unmute, or you can unmute yourself. I think you can do that. Yeah. So, all right, now I have to think of where I was. Yes, we're posting article, stories and stuff on our blogs this week. And please go visit our blogs and leave a comment there. Read the blog through. We have some really interesting stories about how the books came to be and about the writing of each of our books. And then leave a comment on each of the blog posts once you've read them, and go to winterinfrance.com. We made it really simple there, and that will send you to a page that has all of the details about all of this. And it will have a Rafflecopter link there. And then you go just fill in your information. I think it's really simple. Just your name and your email is, I think, all that they require on Rafflecopter. And then next Saturday, if you could please be back with us, same time, same place. And we will have another little Facebook Live event, and we will be announcing the winners there. And the big grand prize is an iGourmet French, what is it called, Melanie?
A Taste of France. I think
Taste
Sarah
of
has
France.
a picture of it.
Yes.
No, okay.
No picture of it. Oh, anyway.
My printer decided to do printer maintenance, and it
Of course. Go to winnerinfrance.com. You'll see it. It's incredible.
Oh, I know. I'm so jealous that I can't win it because it looks so yummy. And so be sure to do that. If you have any questions about any of that, let any of us know, or very simply go to winnerinfrance.com. It's all laid out there for you really easily. So take this week, read our blog posts, have a little bit of fun, share with your friends, please, and let them know, this will be posted on right here on my Facebook page. And I think we were going to put it up on YouTube as well, if I'm not mistaken. And so they can rewatch this and get all of the details and listen to everybody's stories as well and get in on all of the actions. So I think that pretty much sums up Winter in France. And I'm just so excited and so blessed and pleased to be a part of this with Melanie and Sarah and with all of you.
Yes,
too. It's so much fun to share it with all of you guys and to read, everything that you've been saying. So
and I will go through it. I'll read some of these questions, but if you have questions for us, when you reply on our various blog spots or blog posts, please just go ahead and write your question there. And then when we get together next Saturday, we'll kind of divvy those up and answer any questions you have about our research or our writing journeys or our stories or whatever that you have. We're glad to answer any questions. Sarah, did you have any closing words before I do the final giveaway here?
I don't think so. Just make sure you go and enter the giveaway because we're giving away more books, lots and lots of books and goodies, lots of goodies. So.
Yay. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, so final giveaways here, and I'm sorry if I am mispronouncing people's name, but we've got these fun little, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, there we go. Little French violet candies. I don't know, is that a thing in France, Louisa? They're these violet candies. They looked pretty cool. It says French. They looked yummy. So we're giving away a couple of these. Teresa Coussart was one of the winners. And then Phyllis Neisel, I'm sorry again if I mispronounced your names, but please send me your addresses and I'm going to send you some of these French candies. And then we also have Sarah's recommendation are these Harvey and Sons Paris tea. And I love French tea. And so this is a super special treat. And I drew Jeanette Fallon and Shannon Krause for those to win the tea. So please send me your address and I'll get those out to you as well. And then we'll have some more giveaways next Saturday as well. So thank you all. Your comments are wonderful. I'm going to go back and read everything when we finish here. But Louisa, you are it's such a joy to have you with us. I am just so thrilled that you're able to join us today. So thank you. Thank you. I hope people will read your books as well and really appreciate you taking the time. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Liz. Did we cover everything?
I think we did. Yes. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. This was so much fun. It really was.
Thank you all.
Bye, everybody. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
My cursor go.